Living kidney donation is an important part of the transplant process. There are many people involved in the transplant process, but one is especially important to living donors.
So while the transplant surgeon and the nephrologist are all looking out for the living donor, I am and other living donor advocates are separately part of the donor team to make sure that the donor understands what is going on medically, what is going on psychosocially, financially, so that they really know that they're making the best decision both for the potential recipient, but then also for them.
That's Dr. Milda Saunders, University of Chicago Medicine Living Donor Advocate Physician and Assistant Dean of Multicultural Affairs at the Pritzker School of Medicine. I'm Monica Fox, Vice President of Government Relations and External Affairs for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois and your host for this edition of The Journey Continues. This time, I'm excited to talk to Dr. Saunders about the important process of living donation and the role she plays in that. Hi, Dr. Saunders. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Please explain the role of a living donor advocate physician and how it fits into the overall transplant process.
So the living donor advocate physician is the physician who is representing the potential living donor in the whole process. So while the transplant surgeon and the nephrologist are all looking out for the living donor, I am and other living donor advocates are separately part of the donor team to make sure that the donor understands what is going on medically, what is going on psychosocially, financially, so that they really know that they're making the best decision both for the potential recipient, but then also for them.
What are the key differences between living donation and deceased donation?
So living donation is the best form of donation in that the kidney lasts longer and that the recipient spends less or no time on dialysis, which can be really taxing. And we know that it's a more controlled surgery, so people can plan the surgery around other things that they may have going on in their lives.
Please share some common misconceptions about living donation that you often encounter.
So the number one misconception is that people are not eligible. So oftentimes they think that because they have high blood pressure or they carry a little more weight than they want to, that they cannot donate. You think that you have to be in perfect health to be able to be a donor. While we want people to be in good health because we don't want to harm people while they donate, the transplant centers are willing to work with people to get into better health so that they're able to donate and also don't need people to be perfect.
That's good to know. What criteria do you use to determine if someone is a suitable living donor?
The number one criteria is that the person has to be willing. So we don't want anyone who feels pressured or into being a donor who has received money or who donation would harm them because they would get fired from their job or they're not able to take care of their family responsibilities. So that's the number one thing. And then we look at their health. So we look at their kidney function. So living donation, we'll take a step back, is where you remove someone's kidney and put it into the recipient. And so that means that the person who donates has to be okay with just one kidney for the rest of their life. So we look at their kidney function and make sure that they can continue to do all of the things that they need to do with just one kidney. That's also the most important thing. And then we also look at other health concerns that may further impact their kidneys down the line. So do they have high blood pressure? Is that blood pressure well controlled? Do they have any problems with their heart so that the surgery would be difficult for the recovery or they would have problems later on? Do they have diabetes? Because we know that hypertension and diabetes are the two most common causes of having kidney problems. So we don't want people to have diabetes at all. But we do know that some people have pre-diabetes and we want to work with them to sort of make sure that that does not go on to develop diabetes by getting some of their health habits under control.
All of that being said, please walk us through the evaluation process for potential living donors.
So the first step of the process is that the potential donor has to call into the center. A lot of people say, well, why do I have to do that? We want to know that this is completely voluntary. So we don't want people to feel pressured because someone from the transplant center keeps calling them over and over again. So they have to call in. Typically, then we set up an appointment. It's a long day where people come in early in the morning and they see a variety of different physicians as well as other healthcare workers who help them make sure that this is right for them. So during the course of a day, people would see a transplant surgeon, a nephrologist, a kidney doctor. They would see a living donor advocate physician, a social worker, the nurse coordinator, a dietitian, and a pharmacist. And so all of these people are asking different questions about their health and giving them different information about how donation would affect that outcome. In addition, people go to the lab and get blood drawn, a good number of tubes, and then have an EKG, have a chest x-ray, have a CT scan so we can see both the vessels that connect to the kidney and the kidneys themselves, as well as any other things going on inside the body that could potentially harm the potential recipient or that could cause problems down the road for the donor. After that long day, people go home and they get the results of the tests and studies. Everybody reviews them. And then all of those people that they met during the day come together in a meeting and discuss the results. And then after that, there are 3 potential outcomes. So 1 is the donor gets accepted. 2 is the donor has some things that we need to resolve. Maybe they need an additional study. Maybe they need to talk to someone else. And then the 3rd is there's something about their labs or tests or studies or some of the information that we find out that we think that donation just wouldn't be the best option for them. It wouldn't be safe for them, or it wouldn't cause serious problems. And then in that case, the donor is declined. But regardless of which of those outcomes it is, all of that information is kept private. So only the potential donor knows that. No one in their family, no one that they're interested in donating to knows any of their medical information or any of the medical decisions.
What can a potential donor expect before, during, and after the surgery?
So before the surgery, they had this whole evaluation. And then we often ask the potential donor to do a couple things so that they go into the surgery as healthy as possible. So if people smoke, we ask them to stop. We prefer people stop for the rest of their lives, but we certainly want people to stop before the donor surgery. There may be some medications that we can change or adjust because we think that they could potentially make the surgery more difficult or affect their kidneys in the long term. And then they have the surgery. And so the surgery itself lasts 2 to 3 hours. And then the donor would go to the intensive care unit for a short amount of time just to watch them. And then they go to the main hospital floor. Most donors are in the hospital for 1 to 2 days, and then they go home. No surgery is simple, but this is a relatively simple surgery, and people don't need to be in the hospital for a long time.
How do you support donors emotionally through the process?
So that's really important. Many people come to us never having had a surgery, certainly not having had all of these labs and tests and studies. And so part of my job and part of the job of the Live-In Donor Advocate team is to work with the potential donor to make sure that they feel supported, to make sure that they understand everything about the process, that they understand all of their results, and that they understand their ability to say yes, or to say maybe, or to say no. For people who may have additional difficulties, or we just want to make sure that this is something that they're freely doing, everybody talks to our social worker, but they may also talk to a psychiatrist who can ask some additional probing questions to make sure that they are supported in their mental health, whether through needing some additional talk therapy, needing additional medication support. That's important to know. So people who have had depression or anxiety in the past or currently can still donate. We just want to make sure that that condition is under control, just like any other condition. And then after donation, we continue to meet with the donor for a year or 2 afterwards. A lot of times it's meeting with the medical team, but if they need some additional emotional support, we are all able to meet with them by phone, by video call, or when they come for their follow-up visit.
What types of surgeries are performed for living donors, and what are the typical outcomes?
Well, there are two donor surgeries. So one is a laparoscopic, and that is by far the most common. So that's where rather than sort of doing a big incision and going in to get the donated kidney, there's some smaller incisions. And then the surgeon can put air in the belly so that they can see and sort of take the kidney out of this smaller incision. That's great because it's less recovery time, sort of the less people need to be cut, the less there is to heal. Another version of the laparoscopic surgery is an even smaller, less unsightly incision is a belly button incision. So the surgeon will make an incision sort of around the belly button and be able to pull the kidney through the belly button. So, in addition to being kind of really cool, it sort of minimizes the scar. So some people are really not concerned about that. But, for many people, this is important because they have not had any other surgeries. They don't want any scars or any memory of it. And so those are the most common surgeries. For some people, certainly less common, it would be an open surgery where there's a full incision so that the surgeon can get the donor kidney.
Are there any risks or complications that potential donors should be aware of?
Absolutely. So this is a safe surgery, but no surgery is completely safe. The number one risk we want people to know about, or number risk for any surgery, is the most serious risk is death. So the risk of death is real, but it's very low. It's about 1 in 10,000. Certainly greater than 0, but very, very low. The risk of complications overall is about 10 to 20%. And only about 3% of those complications are what we consider sort of more serious complications. So the most common complications are related to anesthesia. So nausea, vomiting. There can be some potential for infection, but again, that's not common. The things that people worry about other than death, would they need blood? Very, very uncommon. Would they have an infection after the surgery? Again, also uncommon. So those are serious complications that happen in less than 3% of the surgeries. You could have a sort of superficial scar or a superficial skin infection, and those are sort of more common, and we consider those minor complications, but certainly work to avoid having those complications. And then the number one thing that, most donors experience, most people who have surgery experience, is pain after the surgery. I guarantee people will have some pain or discomfort, and that is treated and taken very seriously. So initially, people get pain medication through the IV and then get pain medication by mouth. And most people need pain medication for about a week.
And how has the experience of living donation changed over the years in terms of medical advancements and donor care?
So it's changed in a couple ways. Before, it used to be sort of this surgery where there was an open surgery. So there was an incision and the surgeon sort of looked into the donor to get the kidney. Now that surgery can be laparoscopic, so a much faster recovery. We also have had additional advances in who can donate. So we know that someone who has high blood pressure that's well controlled without end organ damage, they can donate. We just want them to make sure that they continue to keep their blood pressure controlled throughout the rest of their life. We also have had advances in who can donate to whom. So before, people could donate if they were a direct match. Now we know that there are ways that you can donate on behalf of someone if you don't match them directly. And that's through what we call a paired exchange or a swap. And then other ways, if your potential recipient is sensitized, meaning their parts of their body will attack the donor kidney as foreign, then there's processes where they can have what we call a desensitization so that they're able to receive a kidney from someone.
You mentioned high blood pressure and keeping that under control for the rest of their lives. What are some of the other long-term effects on a living donor's health after the procedure?
The one that we want everybody to know is that there is an increased risk that someone who donates a kidney would go on to have kidney problems. So that risk is about 5 to 10 times higher than it would be if they did not donate a kidney at all. but still relatively low. So most donors have less than a 5% 15-year risk of going on to have kidney disease or serious kidney problems, end-stage kidney disease or advanced CKD. And that's the main one that we think about. We also know that some people who donate have not yet finished forming their family and sort of want to know how donation can affect their fertility or their ability to have kids. And so we know that people who have donated a kidney are still fertile. They can get pregnant and they can get someone pregnant. There is a slightly increased risk that the pregnancy will have high blood pressure or preeclampsia. So we tell women who still want to have children that they would need additional monitoring during the pregnancy to make sure that their blood pressure was under control and that they didn't have signs of preeclampsia, so high blood pressure or some protein in their urine.
And please explain how donors are matched with recipients.
Donors are matched in a couple ways. So first, we want to make sure that there's blood type compatibility. So when people come to donate, we look to see if they have compatible blood types. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they have the same blood type, but they have a blood type that would work with their potential recipient. The second way is through a test called a cross match. And so that means that the donor's blood doesn't cause a reaction to some particles in the potential recipient's blood. And so that would happen either through what we call desensitization, where then we would sort of make sure that the recipient went through this protocol so that their antibodies were sort of less reactive, or the donor could potentially do what we call a swap.
How do you navigate family dynamics when a potential donor is considering offering an organ to a loved one?
So families are complicated. We know that most people want to help a family member. And if they do, then we encourage that. Some people want to help a family member, but it's just not the right thing for them because of things that they have going on in their lives, because of finances, or because of their health. So in that case, we tell them they don't have to deal with the family dynamic. Just come into the center and tell us that they don't want to do it. And we then take the heat. So we then tell the person that they want to donate to that they're not considered a donor. We don't say your loved one didn't want to donate to you, or we don't say your loved one has this medical condition and they can't donate to you. We just say they're not considered a donor. They've been ruled out. So that way, everybody's able to keep their relationship strong, not have this extra pressure, not disappoint their family member, but still make a decision that works better for them, both for their health and for everything else going on in their life. And we really take that seriously. So a lot of times people want to know, well, how come my cousin couldn't donate? And we just say, this is a confidential visit. Your cousin is just not considered a donor. And we don't go into the reason why.
What can you tell our listeners about the importance of raising awareness for the living donor process?
I really think that people don't realize that living donation is an option. People think a lot about deceased donation, and that is important, but not enough for the gap in the people who need it versus can receive a deceased donor kidney. So knowing that living donation is an option. The second thing that I really want people to know is people at the transplant center are not really interested in just getting their kidney no matter what. We really do not want to harm the person who's giving their kidney, just like we don't want the person who receives a kidney to be harmed. The person who comes into the transplant center is our patient. And so we take care of them like that and wouldn't do anything to jeopardize their health or well-being, sort of financial health, social health, any of that. So they have their own team whose goal is to help them make a good decision, even if that decision includes not going forward with donation. And then the third thing is knowing that you don't have to have lived this perfect life and have this perfect health in order to be a donor. There are many people we encourage to make lifestyle changes, and people do phenomenal things in terms of having lost weight, in terms of having stopped smoking, in terms of really getting some mental health under control, in terms of getting insurance where previously they were sort of not interested, in terms of getting some of their health screenings, sort of PAPs, mammograms, colonoscopies, so that they're up to date on their health-related cancer screening. Those are the three things. Donation is an option. Donation is safe because of the process that we use to select the donors, but we don't need donors to be perfect. We just want to know that they will be healthy throughout the whole process.
That's all excellent information. What advancements or changes would you like to see in the living donation field?
I would really like donation to be people's first consideration. Before you come into the dialysis unit, you see your primary care doctor. Before you even see a nephrologist, I want the primary care doctor to say, hey, I would like you to control your diabetes, your blood pressure, so that you don't even get to this point. But when you see that people are nearing that point, either the kidney doctor or the primary care doctor or anybody really, to say, now's the time to start thinking about renal replacement therapy. Is there anyone in your family? And this is an important point. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a neighbor. It could be a friend. It could be someone you've never met. Is there anyone you know who might be interested in considering donation, so that people start talking about it early on? So I think that that's really something that we need to do overall, both as a community, as a medical field. And then I think from a policy point of view, I think we really need to work to make donation sort of this cost neutral thing, so that people who don't have paid time off through their job can get some assistance so that they don't lose money. Now, we can't pay donors, but we can sort of stop their losses. And that's what we really want to do. And then I think as immunology continues to advance, we can sort of broaden who can donate to whom. And so I think that the science of it continues to advance. Be great for it to advance further, so that people who were sensitized could continue to get the benefits of living donation.
I think that's just awesome information. And, we're advocating on the federal level for better policies for living donors. And it's important to know there are a lot of companies out here who do give 30 days paid leave for living donors. So I think people should definitely check into that if they're interested. My one last question for you is, what message would you like to leave with our listeners who may be considering becoming a living donor?
I'd like to speak to two groups. So people who are facing advanced kidney disease, even before end-stage kidney disease, your family members, your community members, they love and they value you. So they can always say no. Just consider asking them, right? All you have to do is ask for that group. And then for people who have a loved one, community member, church member, colleague, or who just feel called to donate. That sometimes happens. People just have always wanted to do this. I know that there are a lot of scary stories about the medical field and, absolute reasons to be wary. Just know that the medical team is looking out for you, both because we want the best for the people that we take care of, and then also because we don't want our medical centers to be responsible for causing harm. So considering donation, if you need a kidney, asking people, and then having trust in the process that we will help people get healthier. Or if we really think it's not a good idea, we will say, this is not a good idea for you at this time.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Saunders, for your time and for this valuable information. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Monica.
Living donors are heroes here on Earth. Without them, we won't be able to reduce the wait for patients who are awaiting a kidney transplant. For more information about kidney transplant and living donors or living donation, visit nkfi.org. I'm Monica Fox, a kidney warrior, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention is a key part of our mission at the Kidney Foundation. That's why at the end of each episode, we share a health tip.
Keeping fit and active is good for every body system. Your mental and physical health can improve when you're moving your body regularly. By exercising 3 to 5 times per week for at least 30 minutes, you can help reduce your blood pressure and lower your risk for developing chronic kidney disease. As a bonus, you'll likely improve your mood. If exercise is new for you, start with something simple like walking around the block or parking farther away from the door in a parking lot. Gradually build up to more rigorous exercise like Zumba, jogging, or swimming as recommended by your care team.